I am Jason,
And I'm Jordan.
and this is not part of the plan.
Hey, Jason. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a bit of we call it a last minute kind of recording, kind of a pivot of sorts as we change plans a little bit and initially didn't have plans to release anything today. But yeah, it's been a busy week and some just kind of a new idea came up of something to post. So yeah, here we are doing a morning recording. That's very rare. So
yeah, it totally is. I think we should give a bit of credit to ourselves, like it was a long week for me and I was feeling quite overwhelmed and stressed and I was just not in the right headspace and tried to be honest about that. And we both felt it was good for both of us to prolong it or not do it that week. So I think that's the goal I'm always working towards, for is just trying to listen to myself and how I'm feeling, right? Not push too hard. So
as it turned out, there is something that I was thinking about that I thought would fit to release. And it was just for the listeners, it was the school that I worked at. I don't know how to describe it at this point. I guess I'm not technically staff anymore. So the school that I worked at, it was their graduation week. They do kind of a couple days worth of events. There's a ceremony with the traditional elements of a high school graduation. And then the next day they do a banquet. So that's a bit more intimate, a bit more celebratory meal, and they do a dance for the students and things like that. It's a smaller high school. There was a grad class. I think it was 32 or 33. Don't quote me on that. Somewhere in that range. And so as part of that, the grad class actually asked if I would give the keynote address at the ceremony. They asked me a few months ago, and at the time I was looking to be involved, and I was honored to be asked, and I knew my heart was in a place that might not feel like I was the right person to address them, and the celebration of this accomplishment, this milestone, and I asked them, like, "Are you sure you want me to do it?" And yeah, and they did. They did really want to have me up there, and so that was really an honor and pretty humbling to be asked to do that. They were also really close with Amy, and Amy taught them in grade 7, so 5 years ago. And it was actually her first class that she had after her first round with cancer. So she had not finished the year before. She had taken the medical leave. And then when September rolled around, she was willing to try to get back into teaching and was super nervous, super anxious. Just the change and the as you know too, like the emotional toll that cancer takes on somebody, and then physically too, right? So, but she gave it a shot, and so to have that class first was actually such a blessing because they were a great group for her. They really clicked as a class, and so it was really special for me then, who also taught them for a couple of years and coached many of them, and I feel like I have a strong bond with them too. But for Amy's legacy as well, and for I felt like I was representing both of us up there, and so that was really special for me to be able to speak to them. But as you'll hear, because well, Jason, I'll let you speak here in a second, but I was thinking, would it make sense to just play my keynote address to the grad class as a bonus episode here on the pod? And I kind of wrestled with it a little bit. Like, it's obviously catered to a specific group of people, a specific community at the school. And so some of it might not apply to other listeners who aren't part of that community. But yeah, I don't know. I think it reveals a bit of my heart too and where I'm at. And it's been a good challenge for me also to kind of dive into some more reflective ideas of everything that's happened. And so that's been important for me to do. So I know you listened to it and you gave your encouragement to me to say, like, yeah, let's put it out there. Just curious why you thought it might be a good fit for the podcast.
I think it's important to like, I mean, I feel like since the beginning of this podcast, we've tried to stay just really real and raw and vulnerable, just share where we're at no matter what. And yeah, like you said, I think the speech you gave really does give a bit of a glimpse into where you're at, maybe right at this moment, and and kind of where you're going and how you're feeling. And so yeah, I mean, I listened to it once, but I wanted to listen to it again, and I wrote a little bit of notes. But I feel like your typical speech towards a grad class is like really like yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's really almost like a call to action, like like hyping them up, a lot of cliched things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there was a bit of that as well, but I think this speech really spoke to like why we're all here, and there was just this one underlying message, which it hit me really hard too, because it's something where I'm struggling too with my faith and understanding if God is even real or if all this even made sense to keep going with. But it's that no matter what happens in life, there's something else, there's life after life. And yeah, this is such a simple way to sum that up, but I I was really, it hit me really in a positive way. It made me sort of piece together maybe why I was probably how I'd been feeling, where you go through something really tough and it makes you second guess how your time is spent and your life. And then it makes you almost question, like, was this all meaningless? Like, I did all the good things, like you said in your speech, you can be a great Christian and do all the right things, and loss happens and heartbreak happens, and all of those things happen, and that it's not a reflection on God. And so I like that you challenge those kids, those young adults, not kids, those young adults to really to put stock in what was important, like what was the main thing they can wake up each day and realize that there is something much bigger than those life decisions they're going to make. There's something in the background always, and that is living a life that Jesus wanted us to lead and it's a life of love. And it was very well put. You're very good with words, I feel like, and I've told you that before, but yeah.
Thanks, Jason. I should, say too that the tone I took, it being in a public setting probably comes across more confident than sometimes how I do feel, right? So if anyone's listening now that heard me then, know that I don't say all those things lightly and then and have no doubt. Like, no, I have real doubts too. But I think where I land with it all, and I hope what came out in that speech is that it is the only hope that I have, and the only hope that any of us can have. In that, otherwise, this life feels just so meaningless for me, I should say. And so, for me to just hold on to the only source of hope, even as I doubt, and even as everything around me feels uncertain, that's the only thing that will keep me going. And I think that message is okay to hear and to put out, and then to support each other with. And we don't have to always be strong and have no doubts. But yeah. Anyways, maybe we should just play it. I don't know. Unless you got anything else to say.
No, and I guess the one thing I kind of just wrote in my notes was how you mentioned is not shying away from the emotions, like how Jesus encountered, emotions of love and anger and crying out on the cross. I think that's such a good reminder, like when you give this speech, it's not to say that like, hey, Jesus encountered these and we just need to deal with it and move on. That's
Yeah,
not it at all. Like
no,
Jesus was present with his emotions, I'm sure. And
definitely.
like that's such a beautiful way to put it, like we need to be present with ourselves, and it's not going to be easy, but it's maybe that gives me a bit of solace. I'm feeling choked up just even thinking of it. Like there's solace in that, which I think is maybe just what I needed to hear even today. So, if someone else hears a small or gets anything out of that, I think that's super positive. So thank you for choosing to do that speech for those young adults. And yeah, it's a powerful message, very powerful message.
Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Here's the keynote address to the Vernon Christian School graduating class of 2024. Hope you all have a good week, and thanks for listening.
Thanks so much.
All right. Hey guys. And hello everyone. Like you heard, my name is Jordan, and I have the absolute honor and privilege to be up here in front of you all, especially the graduates this evening, with what I hope is a meaningful reflection of this amazing group and the journey we've all been on together. To almost all of these students, I can still call you that for a little bit here, I've at one time been their teacher or coach, and we've shared a lot of time together, haven't we? Classes in the portable, science lessons, soccer provincials. In fact, there are 4 separate trips to provincials represented in this group and 125 goals in these boots. It's a pretty big number. Always got to give that soccer shout out too. There have been many car rides, volley soccer DPA, amazing expeditions, and after all that, it's pretty unbelievable, really, that we're here. I mean, this is a moment. And what a moment it is, not just because you made it here through countless hours of school, filled with math tests, math celebrations, right? Chants of, let's go Royals from Gingras in the hallways, always. Random stories about Rutland from Bannock. Bus rides with Reedike. So many good morning crews. And feelings wheels. And core competencies. And so many reflections. Just countless hours of this thing we do called school. Well, actually, I did try to count or calculate the number of hours to the best of my ability, and came to a rough number of about 12,370 instructional hours from K to 12, give or take, spent in class. Although I heard that for some of you is much less this year. You know who you are. Okay, but look, this isn't just a moment because we get to celebrate you being done school, although that is worth celebrating. No, this is a moment because we get to be here together for what might be one of the last times. And I don't say that to make you sad, but because someone wise once told us that half of making the most of each moment is recognizing when you're in it. So let's acknowledge that, shall we? And like the renowned philosopher Andrew Bernard once mused, I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Not that all of you feel like your time at school has been the good old days. Maybe for some of you, you're just ready to get out of here and on with your lives. But there is a season for everything. And as Ben Rector reflected on in his song, Old Friends, the truth is that we grow up and wish we could go back again. So let's lean into this moment, shall we? How should we best capture it? We could reminisce and tell stories of pranks with phones, or plank competitions, or sports accomplishments, or a variety of stupid things you've done in vehicles. And I wrote that before this morning, Owen, just saying. We could try to recreate core memories, like astronomy on the roof, or unauthorized rock climbing during field trips. Or I could summarize what you've learned, or at least should have learned, from your amazing, excellent, wise, flawless, perfect teachers and the lessons they've taught you. Okay, maybe not, but a lot of things that you guys have learned over 13 years, right? Maybe we could sing some science songs together, or have one last math celebration. Okay, maybe not, but while I have your attention, I've got a few things I'd like to say. It's honestly been pretty difficult personally for me to find the right tone for this speech. Like, I know this is a time to celebrate, and obviously we're going to do that. But among all of this, there's an ache in my heart that makes it hard for me to only talk from a place of hope and optimism. And I fully acknowledge that my heart is tender and healing. And while this time is not about me at all, it is impossible for me to speak to you without some of that stuff coming out. I've always tried to be genuine and real, so why stop now, right? And truthfully, I don't think it's just me either that feels like the joy of this moment is held alongside some sorrow. I've had the privilege of spending a lot of meaningful time with you guys over these past few months. The days hiking in the rain and mud. There's been time on and off the soccer pitch together where we had valuable and deep conversations. I've been camping with some of you. I tagged along at grad retreat where we had an opportunity to remember just how much Amy loved you. We've shared coffees and thought through some meaningful questions. I basically have got to do all the fun things with you without any of the marking or planning, which is a pretty sweet gig, I gotta say. This time we've spent together has led to special moments to connect with you heart to heart. And what I heard and saw during these moments is that many of you are also wrestling and thinking and carefully considering your faith and this whole thing called life. As Mr. Hayes might say, many of you have gone through or are in deep waters. Knowing that means that I don't have to shy away from the hard things of life that we all experience. You don't need protection from those ideas or those thoughts, which might just be the most adult thing about all of this. And I think that's a big reason why I feel so honored to be chosen to speak to you during this time, because I know you know. I know you know that this means something to me, and I hope it means something for you too. You are aware of where my heart is at, and yet you asked me. So while our focus is on you, as it should be, I feel seen by you. And I don't need to hide my heart from you. And nor should I. As I'll talk about in a bit, if Jesus was our example of how to live on earth, then when we experience heartbreak and sorrow, we don't have to shy away from the emotion that can come with it. Jesus wept. Jesus got angry. Yes, love is not easily angered, but it can be angered. Jesus cried out to God, being exhausted by sorrow, sweating blood, and experiencing anguish. How freeing it is to know, then, that our Savior demonstrated these very same strong emotions that we sometimes feel, and that sometimes we feel most embarrassed about to show, or weak when we experience them. Okay, but where am I going with all of this? Great speech, Seven Houston, right? Real inspiring. Like I said, I'm trying to find the right tone with this all. Because you're here staring out with a mostly empty slate, ready to create beauty and chase love and work towards goals that you've set for yourself. There's a real and wide realm of possibility ahead with where life can lead. And I'm sure there's excitement, along with nerves perhaps, about the big dreams and hopes you have for your life. And I wish I could stand here and say without a shadow of a doubt that it's all going to work out. That if you just dream big and work hard and learn from mistakes and be kind, you can do anything. But that's just not necessarily the truth, is it? None of us are God. None of us are in control. And I can't stand here and promise anything to you. That doesn't mean it's wrong to have a ton of hope and optimism about you, because I'm truly filled with confidence in who you are, knowing that there are tremendous gifts and hearts and real world changers among you. You are an incredible bunch, talented in so many different ways. No one person exactly like the other. It's part of what's made you such a special class over the years, as your depth of character grew and formed and was uncovered day by day, moment by moment, to reveal bright and impactful, confident children of God. I think more than ever, though, I just realize how easy it is to have our eyes set on the wrong things while we're here on earth. Because it is easy to get conditioned into chasing after worldly treasures, I know I am. It's one of the easiest traps to fall into. Maybe the question we ask then should be less about what am I going to do after high school? What career am I going to plan for? How many kids am I going to have? What house am I going to buy? Where should I travel to? How can I make life easier, more comfortable? On and on and on. Because as much as we don't want to think about it, all of that can be taken away in a moment. So maybe there's a more important question that we should be asking. Not just you as new graduates, but all of us, daily, as we stare out at unknown futures. Because while we all have these lowercase h hopes that we dream about, not one bit of it is what gives us purpose and meaning. Instead, I stand here in front of you and confidently state that the only thing that makes sense to me is that we have one eternal purpose, and that's to glorify God and build his kingdom. And just like recognizing the moments when we're in them, if we can recognize that purpose now, today, every day, that's half the battle won. The second half of the challenge is to figure out what to do with the time we have here on earth. And that's a hard question. We can say all we want what our purpose is, but what do we do about it? And while I don't claim to have all the answers, despite many of you having a shirt that says 7 U's and knows best, if there's a nugget of truth in anything I say tonight, just know that maybe you shouldn't believe everything you see on a t-shirt. But what I've been learning more and more as I continue in this life is the simple truth that we live our purpose through love. It's not just a nice thing to say or something to tattoo on your arm or something that we just sing about. It's something to truly live out. We can actually take that ideal that seems to just float around in our Christian bubble and the Christianese that we use and turn it into practical action. Because the incredible thing is that Jesus also lived a life here on earth, just like we are all now doing. So we have the example of what it means to live a life of love. We have the ultimate role model of how to do this with Jesus. And how did Jesus love during his time on earth? He served the physical needs of those around him, the sick, the poor, the hungry. He let the little children come to him, spending time with them and engaging at their level. He spent time with the outcasts, the marginalized, the degenerates. He acted in humility and grace, asking questions and listening and seeing people in their hearts. He came with peace over war, love over judgment, service over being served, washing feet, and establishing his kingdom by laying down his life. He is love. So when you are stuck and you don't know what to do with your life, when you're sitting there, unsure of whether or not you're on the right path, that's when and why we should be studying with careful detail his ways and character, knowing that's the only way to learn how to spend our time here on earth, and therefore the only way to find your true purpose and calling. Look, when tragedy hits, the common thing to do is reflect on the brevity of life and think about things like making the most out of each moment and doing things while you're young. All that stuff about living life to the full. I think there's truth in the sentiment that we don't want to waste what we've been given. Talent, time. But really, when we say those things, what are we talking about? Is it worldly treasures of travel and money, comfort? Or maybe living life to the fullest is way less glamorous than that. Maybe it's that generous act of putting someone else's needs ahead of your wants. Maybe it's taking the time to connect with the person who you've been meaning to encourage, spending quality time with them now instead of putting it off and thinking you'll do it later. Maybe it's dropping off some baking, or visiting someone in the hospital, or cleaning their car, or washing their windows or patio, or singing with, or praying for, or any other act of service. Dropping off a gift or card, maybe a simple hand on the shoulder, a hug, a reassuring smile. What if living in the moment is really just trying to love in all circumstances? I have to say, though, that I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a bit on this. Because it was many of you who showed love in these ways last year, wasn't it? Did you catch that? I'll forever be grateful for your love. And I know Amy was too. But the sobering truth is that the love did not give what our hearts desired as much as we wanted it to. The truth here being that even when we love well, pray unceasingly, do good works, and serve others, that does not mean we will get what we want here on earth. I point that out because it is a fallacy that I believe causes many people to walk away from faith when life gets hard. Earlier this evening, we sang about the goodness of God, but do we really understand what that means? I'm rebuilding my own understanding of God's goodness because of that misguided hope, perhaps. That if you live well and love Jesus, love your neighbor, read your Bible, pray, work hard, do good, that you will receive God's goodness here on earth. And if that doesn't happen, we blame God or stop believing he even exists because, well, our minds might think these bad things show that God is either not good or not real. Again, there's that mix of hope and optimism with eyes for what's true and important. I really don't mean to temper your excitement about your futures or sap your joy in this moment, and I apologize if these words do that. But the truth is, it is only real hope in Jesus' death on the cross and our salvation that is the source of lasting and real joy. And if you hold on to that source of hope, then no manner of darkness, not even death itself, can separate you from his goodness, love, or joy. How else in this world can one learn to be content in all circumstances? Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Sorry for going a bit long. I want to leave you with this. I understand you've studied Ecclesiastes this year with Guthrie. Meaningless. Everything is meaningless, it's chasing after the wind. I wonder how often that scripture is quoted at a grad address. But look, there might be times where life does feel meaningless to you. Maybe it already has, maybe it currently does. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't dream or that you should just let life happen to you. Dream big, follow your heart, but always ask the question, what is it that I'm hoping for? Am I chasing earth's treasures? Or do I dream about the things that will bring true fulfillment in Christ? Are our hearts conditioned to the worldly comforts or to Jesus' path to the cross? And do you remember how Ecclesiastes ends? Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. And what are God's commandments, right? As Galatians 5:14 summarizes so beautifully, for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. So when I think of you and what my hope is for all of you, it is truly this, that you'll never forget that you are loved, and that when the hard things of life happen, when we experience pain and disappointment that comes with the brokenness of this world, that you remain in him, living a purposeful life of love, knowing that there is life after life. Now, I started by talking about moments, and as this final one we have together comes to a close, I just want to remind you all that a moment can only be a moment because it has an endpoint. As Amy might have said, it's what allows us to have a fresh start. So your time together at VCS has to come to an end because it is only in its ending that a new moment can begin. So may your fresh starts and moments to come always be full of his love as you live into his purpose. Love you guys. Thank you.
This has been Not Part of the Plan.